A brand new summoner spell meta for the AD carry role has emerged, while you need to be rushing Static Shiv on a bunch of ADCs after its massive buffs. And remember, if you're struggling to climb in League, SkillCapped is the only place that guarantees you'll climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. Otherwise, you can claim a full refund. We do this because our service really works, and this is the best time of the season to get in on SkillCapped, as we've just released tons of site-exclusive courses designed for you to power learn the most important concepts for climbing in League of Legends stupidly fast, compared to those who don't use SkillCapped. Join today for unlimited access to the world's most famously effective League of Legends guides, and remember, one subscription gives you access to all of our other games as well. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to stop wasting time being hard stuck and get the rank you actually want. And with that said, let's get into it. We'll be making a few adjustments to the top lane tier list for mid-patch, and the first consists of moving Volibear up to the S tier. If you guys watched our OP builds video for this patch, we covered the new Flicker Blade setup on Volley, and it's giving him some really nice added strength right now. With the build, you're able to get maximum value out of the new rune Jack of all trades, which gives you 25 adaptive damage at max stacks. If you guys haven't seen the build yet, it's a Rod of Ages rush into Flicker Blade second, and then Spirit Visage or Frozen Heart thirds. Here's a look at the rune page, as it's press the attack for the Keystone rune, and then it's super important you take Jack of all trades as well. So not only is this build extremely fun to play, it's actually very strong at the same time, and we definitely recommend you give it a shot for 14.11. A more niche top lane champion that we've had too low down on the tier list over the past couple of patches that we are moving up for 14.11 is Twisted Fate. Especially for this patch, top lane TF is back in a great spot due to the Static Shiv buffs. You can either run a Static Shiv or Kraken Slayer rush, and both items are super good at the moment. Crit being removed from Kraken Slayer in exchange for movement speed has made AD Twisted Fate even better, as he's a champ who benefits so much more from movement speed due to the fact a lot of his strength comes from being in range to land his gold card. There are two really strong builds you can look to play right now. The first consists of Kraken Slayer with Fire Cannon and Terminus, while the second build has you rushing Static Shiv. If you're playing against a top lane champ who's more difficult to kill in the 1v1, then going for Shiv to just delete waves and play for roams is a great idea. Our new macro course for top lane is a phenomenal resource to help you out with that kind of playstyle. Vice versa, if you are snowballing early on and are in control of the 1v1, Kraken will provide more damage in straight up duels. There's really just one matchup that you want to avoid when picking top lane TF, and that matchup is Jax. Jax with his E has the ability to dodge out on Twisted Fate's gold card, so it makes the matchup very difficult for TF to succeed in. Other than that, Twisted Fate is super good into top laners who lack gap closers like Darius, Set, Volibear, and Garen. So besides Kennen, TF is right up there as one of the best ranged top laners for solo queue, and you'll find him in the S tier for 14.11. So if we take a look at the top lane tier list for 14.11, it's mainly just a bit of reshaping for mid-patch. Urgot is being moved down into the S tier, as Tryndamere and Set are just on a level above all else right now. Especially Tryndamere. He was buffed in 14.10, as Riot thought that removing lethal tempo would negatively affect him, but Trynd is doing completely fine with Grasp, so it looks like Riot may have to revert a bit of that buff moving forward. Many top lane champs were buffed in 14.11, and all the changes have panned out to expectations except for one. Gnar was the only top laner who really didn't gain a whole lot of strength off the back of his buffs, so we're moving him down into the B tier for mid-patch. Nasus, Singed, and Pantheon have all become considerably stronger due to their buffs though, and our pre-patch prediction of moving all three champs into the A tier has played out nicely. K'Sante changes have also played out to expectations, as the adjustments were net negative, and he didn't end up gaining any power at all for solo queue, so he remains in the top lane C tier. As for one top lane champ who was nerfed, being Aurelia, her change did land a bit more harsh than anticipated. On paper it didn't seem like a huge nerf, but with Aurelia's health growth dropping, she's actually lost over 2% win rate for 14.11. We're going to be moving Aurelia down one more tier for mid-patch, as she's being placed in the B tier. 14.11 has been a massive patch for Kha'Zix, as he's gained around 3% win rate due to his Q buffs. Rune optimization could lead to Kha'Z's win rate spiking even higher, as so many players are running Time Warp Tonic when Triple Tonic is heavily overperforming. Unless your plan going into the game is to invade, the value from Time Warp is just quite inconsistent. Triple Tonic, on the other hand, provides guaranteed value every single game and should be run way more often. Regardless, the buffs this patch have turned Ka from one of the more underwhelming junglers to one of the best in the entire game, as we're moving him up into the jungle S tier. Base stat changes always seem to get overlooked, and even we did not expect as much to come out of the Master Yi buffs. Master Yi had his health, armor, attack damage, and attack speed growth increased this patch, and the changes have turned out extremely impactful. Master Yi has gone from arguably one of the worst junglers in the game straight up to the top of the tier list due to these buffs. The craziest part about the changes as well is that we really aren't seeing a huge disparity in the strength of Yi based on the elo. Generally, with scaling buffs like these, we'll see the champ gain a lot more win rate for low elo, but Master Yi has been winning a ton in high elo as well. It's kind of weird to even say this, but Master Yi is just a well-rounded pickup regardless of rank in 14.11, and we're bumping him up into the OP tier. If we take a look at how the jungle tier list is constructed for 14.11, the OP tier will be locked down by 3 champions, as we've got Lilia, Rek'Sai, and Master Yi. Karthus and Taliyah ended up losing a good chunk of strength due to their nerfs this patch, so Lilia now stands alone as the best Blackfire Torch jungler. OP tier honestly is a little bit of everything right now, as Rek'Sai is great if you want to play a more early game focused pick. Lilia is just solid all around, while Master Yi scales exceptionally well due to his buffs. With someone like Yi, being able to master the mid to late game is really important to get the most out of the champ, and our new mid to late game course for jungle can help you out with that massively. Now, if your support locks in a melee engaged champ, then spamming Rek'Sai is just such good value right now. Getting bot lane ahead is pretty reliable if you're ganking for a melee support, as the CC lockdown that you'll have helps to secure kills. Vice versa, if your bot lane has locked a more scaling focused duo, where pulling off early ganks will be a lot more difficult. Locking Master Yi or Lilia is going to suit you better. Mid lane champions that can abuse the new first strike to the fullest are finding really great success right now, and Lux is one of them. As more players gravitate towards first strike instead of Comet, mid lane Lux's win rate continues to rise. With the long range from Lux E, it's just so easy to consistently proc first strike in lane and amass a bunch of bonus gold. Remember, the base gold that you get for proccing first strike went up from 5 to 15, so you're able to stack a lot more gold in lane now to accelerate into your first item spike quicker. Here's a look at the full rune page that you should be running on your Lux. So we'll be giving Lux a push up the tier list for mid patch, moving her from S into OP tier. If we have a look at the mid lane tier list, the OP tier is being locked down by Brand, Uxin, and Lux. Other than Lux, some really good first strike users right now are Vel'Koz and Xerath. For the first time in a while, Vel'Koz mid has seen a decent play rate spike, and it's mainly due to first strike along with his ability to abuse the Blackfire Torch rush. Xerath and Vel, both being very long-ranged mids, have great power with first strike since it's so consistent to proc in lane. We had moved Tryndamere top lane up into the OP tier recently, but mid lane Trynd is also quite good right now too, and we're adding him back to the tier list, placing him in S. It's the exact same build as top lane with Ravenous Hydra and Phantom Dancer as core items. The main difference though is that Fleet is the better keystone than Grasp, especially if you're in a ranged matchup. We saw a lot of comments on the previous tier list inquiring about why Corki is not higher up. Despite the champ being played by a bunch of pros in solo queue, he's really not performing great with the average player. Removing Package has definitely hurt Corki mid, as he's just much better suited as a bot lane champion now. Champ is also a lot less forgiving than many other mids, as he needs to have items and has no other way of being effective besides dealing damage. If you fall behind on Corki, you're basically as useful as a cannon minion, so you need to be very proficient on the champ to succeed with him. If you want to spend a ton of time on Corki and get really good at him, then you can make him work, but if you're looking to climb as fast as possible right now, there are just so many more reliable options. Corki did get even weaker this patch as well with the nerfs to the Collector and Infinity Edge. After struggling mightily due to the ADC item rework in 14.10, it looks like Smolder has finally found a build that's giving him some solid strength. Instead of rushing Essence Reaver or Trinity Force, it's Manamune that's gaining in popularity and winning at a much higher rate. Smolder's base AD has been buffed up from 55 to 60 over the past patch, and going for a heavy AD stacking build is looking really strong. You rush Manamune and build into Spear of Shojin second so that Smolder's Q hits really hard, and you can spam out his abilities without a worry of running low on mana. You're going to be spiking really hard in the mid game with this build because you'll have Manamune fully upgraded to Mirror Mana and 225 stacks of Smolder's Q. Smolder's Q at 225 stacks deals true damage, which scales off 2% of his bonus AD, so going for an item like Manamune that has so much bonus AD is great value. So overall, Smolder is back in a viable spot for solo queue this patch, and we're moving him into the ADC B tier. Smolder ended up as one of the bigger winners from 14.11, but one ADC who has lost a considerable amount of strength is Samira. Reason being is because Samira runs the Collector and Infinity Edge as her two core items, and both were nerfed. Samira was also directly hotfix nerfed in 14.10 as well, so she's ended up losing a lot more power than many of the other ADCs who also like that item combo. As a result, there are definitely much stronger ADCs to choose from now, as Samira is being moved into the ADC B tier. Throughout the past year, we've seen so many different viable summoner spells for ADCs, but now with Ghost and Cleanse recently nerfed, Barrier has begun overtaking as an optimal pickup. Barrier was buffed in 14.10 with the duration increased and the shield strength increased as well. You can honestly run the summoner spell on the majority of ADCs, however, it's going to be most optimal on champs that are looking to skirmish early on, as the low cooldown on the spell is really nice to constantly force all-ins. Corki, Samira, Lucian, Caitlyn, Kalista, Draven, and Zeri are a bunch of ADCs that pros have been running Barrier on the most in solo queue. So moving on to the ADC tier list, we have a lot to talk about in regards to meta shifts due to the item changes. OP tier will continue to be locked down by Jhin and Jinx, however Ashe is moving up to take the third slot for this patch. Ashe was not negatively influenced at all by any of the 14.11 item nerfs, so she's taken an added step forward as she was already in a great spot prior to the patch. We noted in the pre-patch tier list that we'd have to wait and see exactly how impactful the Shiv buffs would turn out, and with the patch being live for a few days, it's pretty safe to say the item is now a really strong pickup on a few ADCs. Zeri is the most notable, who's been performing incredibly well with the Shiv rush and is being moved up the tier list as a result. A lot of Zeri players are still running the Blade of the Ruined King rush, so if you have yet to try out the buffed Shiv, we would definitely recommend it. Sivir is back with Shiv, as the 2-item core of Static Shiv and Infinity Edge is leading to some really great success right now. It's not just the Shiv rush that has given Sivir a bunch of added strength though, as she's an ADC who has been loving the first strike changes. It's very easy for Sivir to constantly proc first strike throughout lane due to the long range from her Q, and being able to amass a bunch of bonus gold helps to accelerate into that deadly mid-game spike. Kai'Sa with the Static Shiv rush is working really well again for 14.11. The buff to minion damage feels really clean to insta-pop waves with the Shiv proc and Kai'Sa's Q damage. The fact Shiv now has movement speed as well is super nice, and the cost being 2,800 leads to a quicker spike than Kraken Slayer, which costs 3,100 gold. As for Caitlyn, her nerfs really didn't hit that bad at all. We were expecting Kate to lose a little more power than she did, especially due to the fact the Collector and IE were also being nerfed, but she's held up really well, so we're adjusting Caitlyn back up into the S tier for mid-patch. Draven, on the other hand, really didn't end up gaining much power at all due to his buffs, as a few days after the patch, he's actually seen his win rate decline from where it was in 14.10. Changes have turned out quite underwhelming, and he's now in the lower percentile of bot lane carries, being placed in the C tier. Support meta is looking very similar to where we had it for pre-patch, as we've just got one minor adjustment. Nami is moving up into the OP tier as her buffs have panned out extremely impactful. If there's one enchanter who fits quite well with the current ADC meta, it's definitely Nami. Nami is more of a lane-dominant enchanter, so she works great with Lucian, Kate, Corki, and Ashe, who are all being played a ton in meta. We covered in our OP builds video for the patch that Seraphine is a really good first strike user right now, but there are a few more enchanters you can look to take advantage of it on. Sona, Xerath, Lux, Vel'Koz, and Zyra have all been performing very well with the new first strike. Since support has a lower gold income than any other role, first strike offering more base gold on proc feels really great on those supports now. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So there you have it guys, a complete update on the tier list for every single role as we reach the midway point of 14.11. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you back soon.